Hi, welcome to Flagstaff Favorites. I'm Morgan Boatman. Today we're here with Carl Mullings from KFM Designs. Hi, Carl, and welcome. Tell us a little bit about your business and how people can get in touch with you.
I am a portrait photographer based in Flagstaff. I work in Northern Arizona. I cover Flagstaff, Sedona, and Jerome, Prescott, so anywhere in Northern Arizona. I've been a portrait photographer for about 25 years. I do a lot of high school seniors, a lot of weddings, corporate events, landscapes, traditional photography, product, things along that line.
Nice.
I do have a studio, so people can, if it's too cold outside or bitter or icky weather, they can definitely come in studio. If they want more of a cleaner look, we can come in and use a traditional white background, black background, so forth and so on.
Okay.
Being in Northern Arizona, I encourage people to be outside because of the mountains and red rocks and all that, so we can use nature. I can be found online. My website is KFM Designs Photography on all platforms, Facebook, social media, Instagram, anywhere you can find me at KFM Designs.
Nice. You do a lot of high school graduate photography, right?
I do.
Photography?
Flagstaff High School, when they walk across the stage, I'm the photographer that's on stage with them taking their photo. I have a team of 5 to 6 photographers there that will do that, and we cover a lot of high school sports in town.
Wow. How did you get into photography?
Long story. I'll try and be very brief with it. In 6th grade, I got in trouble with the nuns, and they decided I needed a hobby because I was making them crazy. And they called my mom in for a parent-teacher meeting. My mom got me an old Kodak 110 with a little flash cube, and I was off. In high school, I did yearbook. In the military, I was not a combat photographer, but I carried a camera in my backpack. And wherever we traveled to for different assignments, I would take photos, and some of the pictures wound up in Stars and Stripes and different things along that line. Very
nice. How would you describe, you've had tons of experience of different kinds of photography.
Yes.
How do you describe your style now?
It's ever evolving. I'm not going to say I have a style. With high schoolers, you adapt and learn what they're doing, or you go away. So I figure out what the kiddos want. We'll have a conversation about what they're looking for, what their style is, how what their editing. Because like some of them will even come in and say, my editing style is such and such. Can you match that?
What does that mean?
It means that they want their pictures to look a certain way, to be edited a certain way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we'll have a conversation about what what the end result will be for their photographs, and the location that they want to have their portraits done, and we go from there.
And you have so much experience, you can accommodate any kind of style.
I do my best. I try and get it right at least 95% of the time. But yeah, there's always a couple.
As you mentioned, Northern Arizona is so photogenic, and you want to get them outside. What's your favorite spot for photography for graduates?
Oh, there's so many. I would say Aspen Corner is one of them. Heritage Square is another one of my favorites. You can on any given Saturday or Friday, you can find me in an alley, along Heritage Square somewhere doing photos. Sedona is also very, really beautiful. Red Rock Crossing, Tlaquepaque, also like Jerome. So anywhere between spots. Old Town Cottonwood is also very beautiful.
What do you how many photographs? How many graduates have you photographed in your time?
I have no idea. Several thousand.
Several thousand?
Yeah, I have no clue. It's 30. I was actually shooting pictures of graduates before I went into business professionally, and so going back to 2000 and anywhere from 90 to 110 graduates a year. So I haven't done the math for that.
Wow.
Yeah. I know for weddings, I've done well over 850 weddings in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about the graduate work or the weddings?
Weddings, graduates, I would say they're unjaded. They have not been beaten down by life. They will come to me and say, hey, let's go hike, a mile up somewhere. and and I'm gonna have a dirt bike, or or we're gonna do something fun out in the woods, and I'll throw, I'm an old Marine, so I'll throw my backpack on, and wherever they're hiking, I'll go hike with them. For weddings, it's just seeing new love, seeing a couple that's, they're headed into forever together, and the joys of capturing the moment for them.
So they bring a lot of creativity to you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I had a bride from Texas the other day. Her and I, we hiked up Cathedral Rock, and she had her dress in the backpack and a changing tent. And we got to the top of Cathedral. It was just before sunset, and she changed into her wedding dress, and we have beautiful photos from that. So
wow.
It's pretty amazing.
That people are willing to do that. That's so great.
Yeah. It's like I would say, like, I'm not a boring person. I love brides and grooms and high schoolers that will, push my creativity. And when they come to me and say create as opposed to here's a box, I do better with, be creative.
Yeah. And you seem like the perfect photographer for that. Some people would like, oh no, I don't want to climb up that mountain.
No, like I said, I spent 15 years in the Marine Corps infantry, and so yes, I can hike, and hang with most kids. There's a few of them that are in better shape than me, but I try and keep up with them.
You've explained a lot of people who are ready for the shoot. What's a way that they might not be ready for the shoot? Something they might overlook, or something that would make it easier for you to photograph them?
Whenever I meet with high schoolers, I actually have a how-to guide for them. It's about 27 pages, what to wear, locations.
Wait, it's 27 pages?
Yeah, I created it for them. Yeah, I have 5 daughters and a son, and I'm a girl dad. And so my daughters, they'll come to me and say, Dad, this works, this doesn't work, and being around young women, you learn to listen and not just talk.
That's key, isn't it,
It
for
is.
a photographer to listen and have a relationship with?
Absolutely.
What's something you've learned from photography and from your experience?
Ever evolving, things change, fashions change, and sometimes what's old is new again. I'm seeing bell bottoms again, and stuff that was popular when I was a kid, and it's come around again.
Right.
With brides, I've learned that it's their day, and so make it about them. I'm not going to project what I want on a bride. It doesn't end well, So I'll ask them, how do they see their day going, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. You also do a lot of sports photography.
I do. I'm so sorry. Hi, Tech.
That's like diametrically opposed to a portrait. You have action, you have timing, which is crucial. What are the differences between those two kinds of
Believe it or not,
photography?
being a wedding photographer encapsulates all of that. You do portraits, you do action, you do all of that. So if you're a good portrait photographer and you are a good sports photographer, you will be a good wedding photographer, I feel anyway. But for sports photography, it's just being in the moment, being able to kind of predict where it's going. For softball, a right-handed hitter gets up, where's she going to hit the ball, or where is he going to hit the ball? And so you'll capture, them taking a swing, and then you try and, figure out where the ball's going and get your camera there, for the person making the play.
That's sort of calling back to your military experience too.
Yeah. And as a kid, in high school, growing up in New York, I played every sport, and so, volleyball, basketball, whatever the case, we had pickup games for everything. And so, now as an adult, I've covered everything from rugby to tennis to soccer to anything that's going on in sports.
What's a favorite moment that you captured?
I would say probably the young ladies from Flagstaff High School They won state 3 years ago, and they won state this year. And being on the floor with them and just seeing the excitement of of them, winning the trophy. And there's also like this, the soccer girls when they like they're playing a game and like snow's coming down, and it's spring in Flagstaff, and they're they're out there like just tearing it up on the soccer field and just having a blast with it. So like there's a lot of different things.
Ah, that's exciting.
It is.
In a photograph, which captures a fraction of a second, how do you capture the action and the emotion?
It's all instinct. I'm not going to say that I don't have a script. I don't have a preconceived way of doing anything. It's like I go out and I shoot, and I'm in the moment and covering like certain teams. Like I've been with them for years, and you learn the personalities, and when the kid gets up, she's going to stand there and just be goofy, and you wait for it, and I'd rather overshoot than undershoot, so I'll take a few extra shots, to make sure I have what I need.
Yeah, exciting.
It is.
What, you've talked about all different kinds of sports. Football, for instance, do you run up and down the field, or do you?
My really funny or bad joke as an adult is the reason why I'm in such good shape is because I hang with high school kids all week long. Whatever yummy food they're eating, I'm eating. If they're getting wet, I'm getting wet. If they're getting cold, I'm getting cold. If they're going back and forth down the football field, I'm going to be there with them because like to get the shot, you have to be there to get the shot.
Yeah.
If I'm in the end zone and there's a player on the other end zone, I'm not going to get it. So as they move, I move with them.
Wow.
In every sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a sort of a mindset that you go into a shoot with, like, okay, I'm going to do portraits, or I'm going to do sports, or I'm going to do weddings? Is it sort of a different persona, or technique, or tactics?
No, for me, it's just be happy, be cheerful, enjoy the moment, don't be a downer.
Yeah.
Even when kids are having a bad day, I'll still go by and say, hey, you get them next time. Give them a hug, a smile, high five, fist bump, whatever they need to make them happy.
So you really integrate it into the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's another relationship issue, right? You can't just be this sort of neutral figure. You're like involved.
With high schoolers, they have to accept you, or they will laugh at you. Someone asked me, how do you stay in business with high school kids? I'm like, they have to like what you do. I tend to dress like them a lot of times. I have like probably 22 pairs of Vans. And so, I'm always wearing different Vans and, or just dress more like a younger version of me, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite sports shot that you captured?
There's a lot of them, over the years. I would say Coach Johnson, when they won state and he had the net and he did like a fist bump with the net in his hand and he was whipping it around. That was a very favorite shot. A shot of the young ladies like when they get snowed on. For football, I remember a young man catching a pass in the end zone, and he was just so happy. And so, like, there's a lot, is there one? There's so many to go back to.
It feels like you've really contributed to their experience. Because there's a lot of parents out there taking pictures too.
Yeah.
But there's something about you being so aware of what you're trying to capture that when the players look back at them, they can probably remember that game
exactly.
better.
I got I've been a portrait photographer for a long time. I've won awards for doing portraits. I started doing sports because of my daughters. They're all very gifted athletes. And I have one that plays professional basketball, and they've all gone to the next level and play basketball. And I remember, I can always get to their games, and I would be, I'd be in Flagstaff covering a game. And they would be in Phoenix, and someone would capture a nice image of them, and I'd buy the photo, and like, Dad, why are you buying that photo? I'm like, because it's you guys, and so looking at that, I was like, I'm doing the same forever. I have a client by the name of Laura Brain, who we've become good friends. Her kids all played sports for Flagstaff.
Okay.
And one day I was in the gym. She goes, "Thank God you're here." I go, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Every time I see you, I can put my phone away and relax and enjoy my kids playing." And she said that to me probably 12 years ago. And that's always stuck in my head because, you know, that meant a lot to me because, you know, Laura was like, she'd always like grab her cell phone and, you know, and she's like, I do have to say every time you know, your camera clicks, I go, ka-ching, that's money out of my pocket, but I appreciate you.
What's the difference between taking amateur photos or and professional photos?
You know, I had a mentor by the name of Luke Hoopy, who was in Phoenix, and an amazing photographer. And he said, you know, when an amateur pushes a button on the camera, they hope for the best. You know, and when a professional pushes the button on the camera, he knows what he's getting. Because if you push the button, it's too dark, you know how to lighten it. If it's too light, you know how to darken it. And things that you can't fix there, you can fix it in Photoshop or in post a lot better than most people can.
Yeah. Are you thinking like that all the time when you're?
You know, I take a photo and my brain goes to a bunch of different things, like black and white, color, sepia, you know, how to crop it, all that, you know. So yeah, besides just pushing the button, there's like 1,000 calculations that are in my head as I'm taking the photo.
Yeah, yeah. That makes me think of the transition from film to digital. How did that affect you?
It didn't bother me at all. When I saw the first digital camera in 1999 at a professional photographer's meeting. And I was like, oh my gosh, I go, if they can get, it was like a 1.7 megapixel camera. And I said, if they ever get to 8, I will buy in, you know, because I saw what was coming. Yeah. And in 2000, when it got to 8, I jumped ship and I had a Mamiya, you know, box camera. You know, it was a camera that Annie Leibovitz used for doing like, you know, the stuff that she shot with. Yeah. And I put my camera down. I picked up a digital camera, and I've never looked back.
You never looked back.
Yeah, and now the camera I currently use is a 45 meg, you know, camera.
45 megapixels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you can do a lot with it.
Yeah.
The days of like shooting a Polaroid and seeing where everything is. Yeah. You know, I think digital has helped us. And I still shoot like I have film. I don't take 50 shots of the same shot. I'll take 3 and I'm, you know, down and out and on to something else.
Well, you know what you're doing, so yeah, you learned on film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Did it change your approach to the subject? Like, if you have 45 megapixels, maybe you don't, you know, compose quite as tightly because you know you can push in later on.
My mentor, Donald Jack, they're a massive photographer. He once told me, you know, shoot wide, crop later. You know, and so I tend to shoot a little wide, and that way I have room to crop. Yeah. Because I don't ever know if I'm going to do like a vertical, horizontal, a square, or any of that at all. You know, like when I post on Instagram, it's going to be square. If I'm on Facebook, it's going to be horizontal. You know, parents love Facebook. Kids hate Facebook, and they love Instagram. So I tend to be in all places.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to crop them accordingly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where do you see your future going, style-wise or content-wise?
I think content-wise, you know, I will probably start doing a little more video. I will probably start doing more like lifestyle shots. I shot a portrait of a woman in Sedona the other day, Janie Treble, for Sedona Monthly Magazine, and it was for being that it was for Sedona. Everyone thought, you know, we'll go out into the Red Rocks. I'm like, that's been so overdone. And she's a realtor, and she had a beautiful office. So I shot her portrait in her office, like right as the sun was setting, and the light coming through the window was just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And she called me a few days after the magazine came out. She goes, honey, and she's like in her 70s, you know, honey, I have to tell you, you made me look really good. I'm getting phone calls everywhere. And, you know, that made me like just light up, you know, because like I want to be that for everyone.
So when you get a new client, you said you talk to them for a little bit and you get to know them?
Consultation, yeah.
Yeah. So you're not going to put them in an unfamiliar environment. You want to get to know them so that they feel comfortable, and maybe you figure out where they would be most natural.
I had a client a few weeks ago. Her name is Amy, and she wanted a portrait of being out in nature. Yeah. And so I reached out to her, and the photographer had booked her. When it came time for the shoot, he couldn't come up with exactly what she wanted. Yeah. And so she fired him, called me, and hired me, and I took her into nature because she wanted to go like hike out into wherever and do photos. Yeah. And so I grabbed the 2 lights and my camera, and off we went. And when the images came back, I said, "Is this what you wanted?" She goes, "Absolutely. You know, I wanted to be able to be, you know, with trees and you know, like dirt, grass, whatever the case may be, not be in a studio." Yeah. So yeah, you have to listen.
So that's sort of your intuition that you were talking about.
Yes.
Right? She didn't even know what she wanted. But you were able to tease that out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go from, her mind to a concept.
From her mind to a concept.
Yes.
To an end product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In nature, you probably, trying to get that natural look. Are there difficult situations that you can think of that
people don't pay me to not be able to figure things out,
Good point.
So if, I have a client tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, bright sun, and she's like, what do we do? I said, I'll be there, and I have my trusty flashes. And even when, if you look at my photos, they don't look like I ever use a flash, but I've learned how to blend, flash with nature to make it look good. Because if you rely on the sun, you're stuck. If you rely on the environment, you're going to be stuck. And so I bring my lights with me, and we make it happen.
Yeah, while making it look natural.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My mentor, again, Donald Jackie, said, if someone looks at your photo and they try and figure out if you use a flash or not, you won.
Oh, if they can't tell.
If they don't know, if they ask you, did you use a flash? Game over.
When people come to the studio, what can they expect?
Okay, ready?
Ready.
Game on. All right, here we go. And right there. Hold on. Okay, good. Pull and. All right. Let me get rid of this. I'm gonna do more with it than I can. All right, come up again. Okay, turn. All right, a little more. So when I say 3, just do like a light flip, not too much.
Okay.
All right.
Do you like the glove up, or would you
I
rather
like the
have
glove
it
up.
down?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
I wasn't looking at it.
Hey, you know what though? That was perfect.
Oh, nice.
One shot wonder. I like it.
Yeah.
It's more, of a clean look. We
Yeah.
have like white backgrounds, gray backgrounds. It's just more. It's more simple. It's more, more corporate. It's there isn't an environment. It's not themed. And so like if we do like a shoot in studio, you can't, you don't know if it's spring, fall, summer, winter. If we're shooting outside, you're gonna know by the trees exactly the time, day. And for headshots, I'll tell people, if you're putting this on the website, I would probably go with like a studio look, and that way it becomes timeless, and you could, use it over and over again.
Right. And there's more control of the lighting and the mood and fewer variables.
Exactly. Like whenever I shoot outside, I use 2 lights. When I'm in studio, to match the same ambiance, I use anywhere from like 5 to 6 lights.
Yeah.
To make sure everything is lit correctly.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you get people comfortable? Was there a particular situation where somebody was super nervous and you just couldn't? It took extra effort to capture their comfort.
Again, like jokingly, I would say I was born in Jamaica, and so I tend to be very easygoing. I was also a Marine, so this is like that edge also. So I try and find a happy medium, But just my Jamaican mom, my Jamaican Irish mom. As a kid, she would, she was always talking to us, and I am definitely a talker, and so, like most of my clients, I make them, feel pretty at ease.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Nice. All right. Yeah, he and I, we go back a few years. Actually, I did, his daughters played basketball, and I did their photos when they were in high school. That's how we all first met. It's good.
Right here.
I tell you, some days. All right. Yeah, no worries. We'll send up.
Do clients come to you with a certain mindset that's totally inflexible? Have you come up against real difficult clients?
I have. I've had a couple that were like, it was very in the box. Yeah. And so I did my best to stay in the box, But also I'll have clients that will come in and they'll say, do what you want. Just, I want a great photo. How you get there, I don't care.
What do you do when somebody leaves it that wide open?
I know, 99% of the times I'll get to where they want to.
Because you get a sense.
Exactly.
From them.
Yeah, and talking to them and, and filling them out, you get a feel for what they want. And a lot of times, like in shooting, I can show them the back of my camera and say, what do you think?
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yes. So instant gratification.
That's something we couldn't do with film.
Oh, you could, but you use the Polaroid.
The Polaroid.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what's in your camera bag right now? What do you use?
I have a Canon R5.
Okay.
It's a higher end camera, and that's for doing high school seniors, portraits, corporate events, and then also too, my backup camera is an R6 Mark II, and that's more for sports.
Okay.
Yeah, lens wise, I have a 10 to 20. It's very, very wide. It's like ultra wide.
10, wow.
Yeah, I got that for doing landscapes. I've used it for cheer. I've used it for football. I've used it for, I took a picture of like the NAU dome at 10 millimeters.
Oh, that's great.
And that was amazing. I also have a 24 to 105, and that's my go-to lens for doing a lot of different things. I have a 70 to 200, which is more of a zoom factor, and that can let me reach out. You know, I call it my AT&T lens. It can reach out and touch someone. And then I also have an 85 mil and a few other things that, you know, that are there.
A couple of primes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 85 is a classic portrait lens. Right?
It is, and it's my favorite lens to use for doing the high school seniors.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you see the technology going in the future?
Holograms? I have no idea.
Well,
I've looked into that, and we've come so far because like I said, I started out with like a little cassette camera.
Yeah, those 110s, they're all in that
exactly.
black box.
And my flash, back then my flash cube had 4 flashes on it.
That's right.
And now the flash I use, I can get 700 flashes out of it. So we've come a long way. We've come a long way, and even like I could shoot probably 3,000 full res images on my camera right now. And back then I could do like 12 shots on a 110. So we've come a long way. Where it's going, I have no idea. I'm open to whatever comes my way, and I love technology. I love embracing technology, and so we'll see as it happens.
Nice.
Yep.
For someone who might be interested in getting into photography, what would you have to say to them?
YouTube University is always a good place to start. Also find yourself a mentor in town. I mentor a young lady from Flagstaff High School, and she is an amazing talent, and she's doing her first wedding for me next month, so that'll be pretty awesome.
So remind us again how people can get in touch with you.
It's pretty easy. It's KFM Designs. That's on Facebook, Instagram, my website. There are some different, areas there for me too. Like for sports, it's a different website, and also for like high school seniors, it's a different website. But all of that stuff is linked into my main website. So if you find the main website, you can from there branch off to wherever you need to go to.
Got it. Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about the fascinating world that you live through taking pictures of people.
It's never the same twice. My days are never boring. It's always a new adventure. And it keeps my mind sharp, so I appreciate it. And thank you guys for having me here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for joining us at Flagstaff Favorites, sponsored by Flagstaff Video Podcast Studio.